Well, Dr. Ahmed, thanks for joining us today. I am so excited to be talking with some of our parents that, we were saying earlier, have really kind of become friends as well, because we do see your kids as extensions of a family that I think that we're kind of becoming. This series with parents is designed a little bit to share about how you feel the program has in some way helped your student to stand out and for Deanie to maybe find some confidence. So I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of share a little bit about how you got involved with us and what you see happening for Deanie.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'd like to think we are a little bit more than just teachers and parents of students, right? The reason we got involved with the whole WCT, the Wolfpack CubeSat development team with you and Mr. Simmons is because for children interested in science, we were really looking for something which was being offered beyond the traditional classroom. And my son was very interested in science and space and stuff. So that's how when we first came to this middle school, and we came specifically for you guys, actually. So we found this program, and there was like no question about it, wanted to join up as fast as possible. And I think Deanie was in the 4th grade when I started harassing Mr. Simmons. When can he join? When can he join? Because, it was a little bit for the older kids. So that was the start, I think. And what I was going to say, I was talking to my husband about this, and we realized we have really been thrilled with this whole program that you guys are running, right? The Aerospace, AIA, the Aerospace Innovation Academy, it's running the Wolfpack CubeSat development team. And here my kids, he's learning not about just science. What's unique about your program is that he's also learning some very advanced skills in writing, in presenting and expressing himself and his information in front of an audience, right? So that's really going to be a life skill for him. And the other thing was that, as opposed to many other programs where it's a lot of theoretical learning, yes, you do learn through that. This was really his hands-on experience on working on things like the high altitude balloon launches that you guys do, on the CubeSat mission development, the proposal writing, and then the actual, the defense of the proposal in front of a team of experts. I thought, all this came together to really put him in the right frame of mind for any subject, actually, how to think critically, how to organize his thoughts, and how to express that in a manner which is easily understandable. So we are
right. So for our audience, Deanie, the student and the child of Dr. Ahmed, is a 7th grader, very bright, very, I would say, internally motivated in the times that I've seen to do quality work. And Deanie recently made his first, I think this was his first
international conference.
Speaking opportunity on a very public way. Could you share a little bit about Deanie's experiences at the Hawaii International Conference on Education?
Yes, of course. Yes, it was really a fantastic opportunity. I think 2 of the papers he had worked on, one was with Ms. Christensen on STEM education and motivating younger children on how to get part of this STEM pipeline, and also some tips for the teachers on how to get them involved. And the second one was artificial intelligence and how it applied towards education, STEM education, right? Deanie, I have to say, was a little bit nervous. He's not naturally the most extroverted boy. So I think he was nervous because I think Ms. Christensen, they were actually going to have a presentation in front of an audience. And the second paper was a poster. But he was so happy. I think you guys prepared him. He was ready, and he really enjoyed it once it was done.
That's it, right when it's over.
Yes, because he was like, "Oh, okay, that wasn't too bad." And wonderful exposure. The fact that people asked them questions, they had to respond. They actually had to know the material, and which they know and they love. But to actually talk about it in a way that people can understand it was really good. And the networking opportunity was also wonderful for him. Super.
Yes. And for our audience, Deanie had the additional factor of the airlines losing his luggage. So I'll let you pick it up from there.
He was the best dressed there. He was the most, presentable for Hawaii.
Yeah, that was a bit stressful for his parents at least. He was calm as ever, but basically they lost our luggage and we arrived at 8 in the evening. And the next day was his talk actually with Miss Christensen. And he was like, well, what do we do now? And I was like just panicking when I think Miss Christensen texted me and said,
suit at home.
Yeah, she texted me that they actually allow not just formal dress, but Hawaiian formal dress. So we ended up picking him a Hawaiian shirt, which he very happily paired with just a pair of khakis and his shoes and the lei which the hotel had given him. He was thrilled. He was so cool about it. And he said, only in Hawaii, all right?
Only in Hawaii is business. A Hawaiian shirt.
Right? It's interesting, right? Because I know that was the first time that you had joined us on a big one like that, and we commented on how this is definitely laid back. It's definitely Hawaii style versus the other, but I think overall the kids getting their teeth wet, so to speak, at a conference where they have to not only present. So for Deanie, and I shared this with Dan Levy's dad on a previous podcast. He presented like he would at a regular podium. So that's a different style versus the poster. And I think it was his first time actually doing a poster presentation too, right?
Yes. Both very different style. And that's why it was such a good experience because he really got to see the difference. And also he understood that he has to prepare a little bit differently for either as well, right? It's not the same. So that was very good. The funny part is, he had a formal debate competition last week and he asked me whether he could wear his Hawaiian shirt. And I'm like, no, just in Hawaii.
Only if the resolution were about Hawaii, then he could.
So what's interesting is before COVID, the rookies like Deanie, they would get to cut their teeth on banquets. So we would go to professional society banquets.
She joined us, I think.
Miss Lear's, the AIAA, and even our own banquet and National Engineering Week banquet. But those were always good ways for kids to put their toe in the water a little bit and do the dialogue, right? It's being conversant with adults, professionals is that's a soft skill that it just practice, right? It's all it demystifies it. They become less terrified. And like you said, it's like running a marathon. When they're done, they feel really good about it, even if it's a little anxiety on the front end.
I think it really builds their confidence once they go through something like this, right? Now he knows, okay, it's gonna be like this. I've done it. And he asked me an interesting question. He said, Mom, do you get stressed when you have a presentation coming up? And I said, I still do. Hundreds of presentations later, because if you really care about the subject and you want to prepare for it, you will always have this level that you want to do well, right?
Right.
Moment that you take it calmly. And he got really happy with that, okay, I'm not alone. Everybody must.
Yeah. Right. Well, even me, like I share that story there. It even happened in Dubai. There's something that happens when you get up there, even if that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're the public speaking teacher, that, you realize that, wow, this is the moment that I've been practicing for. There's only so much that you can actually prepare for. And I get a really hot feeling that comes up. And there are times that I imagine myself leaving. All kinds of weird stuff goes on. So.
Right. The stakes aren't quite as high for the kids, right? They don't have millions of dollars at stake, either business to be won or lost by your company or whatever your entity is. But I would say we recently had a pretty high stakes meeting with Amazon where we had 5 kids, 2 older, 3 younger, and 3 boys, 2 girls. And we flat out asked them for a serious corporate donation so we could broaden our impact and go after kids that are bright, interested, but don't have any resources to get to space. So that was a higher stakes meeting. And we met with a fellow that had been a general in the Space Force, and he runs all of the Amazon ground stations, all of the data centers. And so that was a little bit more of a high stakes because we're really asking for something. But I like the fact that, young kids, sometimes they don't even know that they should be anxious, right? Maybe as it gets ready to start, it catches up with them. But I would say overall, Deanie, the quality of his work was extremely high when I was his biology teacher. I'm really glad to see him diversifying his interest a little and trying some different subject matter as well.
Yes, I think in 7th grade, he's finding his wings. But I do put it also that your program is a little bit unique, right? It's not just educating them about science and space and exploration stuff. It's also really preparing them on how to do the soft skills part well, right? The writing, the presentations, the speaking opportunities with people who are, like you said, like a panel of experts or a serious business meeting where they're pitching their proposal like an adult. So I think all this really, and as they mature, because I think from 4th grade to 7th grade, you can see his brain like really change a little bit, and his objectives are changing right now. So now this year he's like, okay, I've got to do this, and I think it's just been really good to see him blossom under your mentorship, both your mentorships, I should say.
Well, I was going to share, we get a lot of credit, but we talk all the time about how it's mostly the parents. I mean, we have great kids that we get to work with, but the deciding factor that I think helps a kid to rise from being here to doing some of the stuff that they're doing is really parents who are allowing their kids to take risks and who allow them at times to experience sadness or struggle or failure or hard work, whatever that is. So both you and Deanie's dad are professionals. From your backgrounds as working people in the world and maybe even from an international perspective, what do you think most of all is the problem that we have with education here in this country that prevents us from doing this with all of our kids?
I think all parents want their kids to do well in school, right? But there's always constraints. I guess sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's time. And sometimes I feel that being good enough in school is sufficient for people, right? But from a workplace environment, I know that when I'm hiring people or looking at resumes, I'm trying to see someone who is standing out, who's done more than just what my list of responsibilities or job description calls for. So I think for me, that's really the difference, because parents who know that, it's not just schooling, and I want to be very clear, because what I really like about your program is that it's not a high pressure thing for the kids. I want him to enjoy his time and learn, right? But not to be killed by the pressure. They have enough pressure at school. What you allow them to do is do things at their own pace, contribute where they want and when they can, and when they want. It's not as if you guys say, okay, here's what you're doing. They sign up for what they want to do or what they feel like doing. And so providing the opportunity was the best thing we could do for Dini. And I think providing the opportunity to be part of projects and programs like yours is what, if parents had an opportunity, I think most people would sign up, right? Who doesn't want their children to do well?
So I know we spoke briefly before the recording started, but perhaps you could speak to, I think it's important that middle school is a good time to learn things like project management skills and time management skills. Would you like to maybe address either of those? And if you've seen Dini employ any of those skills in his academic life?
Very much. I think one of the best things I've seen starting this year in 7th grade is that he's realizing that if he waits till the last minute to do everything, something is going to either drop, or he will do a much lower quality of work, right? Even if he manages to get everything in. And and so he's been learning that lesson for the last quarter, because schoolwork went up and down depending on how much effort and how good he did his responsibilities and work management. And this year, when he was planning his paper, it was interesting. He wanted to learn how I do project management or how I lead a team. And I was like, well, first of all, so I told him, which is almost counterintuitive. It's like, you actually plan backwards. And he just stared at me and was like, what? I was like, well, you have a deliverable by a certain date. You need to work. And I really saw that employed when he did his project management for the abstract they needed to submit, right? I think it's due 28th of February or something. And so he set up a little timetable from backwards from there to see when they would get the abstracts in. And actually, they managed to do it in a very timely manner. I hope they did. He told me he did with you, Mr. Simmons. Right. And so he was not stressed. He was not staying up late. And in direct contrast, I think he was also working on some other teams where it wasn't that well done. And he himself pointed out, he's like, oh, they didn't really do a good job of time management. we're now having to work late or, scramble to complete the abstract. So I thought that was a very good life lesson right there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, your son has, I know he's on at least 2 papers, right? One is for Athens and one is for Paris. Do you have a preference as to which you would like him to be accepted in?
Athens, probably. His father's family is in Athens, and he loves to go visit his yaya there. His grandmother.
Oh my gosh, if Constantine's family will join us somewhere, that would be a hoot. We loved hanging out with you guys. I can only imagine his parents.
Thank you very much. Yes, so yes, we do have a preference. It would be for Athens.
I wanted to add, you had mentioned that Dini actually had come to you and had asked a question, and that from some of the work that he was learning, he actually sought out your advice. You're the second parent today who mentioned that recently their child has done something similar, gone and kind of like is showing a different respect almost for not the fact that you're just my parent, but wow, you actually do this and this is hard. I thought I would comment on that because I would imagine that you'd get that more and more.
It's also a sign of wisdom on a child to go to somebody who's already good at something and not be too proud or afraid to ask for help, right? Or to be shown something. So thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Ruhi. We're going to turn now over to Mr. Vescio, who has been with us for a long time. He has one son now in college and twins, obviously, 2 other sons who are just now starting as well. So, Gary, from your perspective, what got your kids involved in our program? Because I know they're different.
Well, we're looking for things to differentiate. So not only to enhance their learning, help their resume for getting into other educational opportunities in the future, but just broaden their thought process. And, our oldest son, who was involved with like the inaugural CubeSat, his, I think, greatest gift was he was a national debate champion. And so he had, the oratory part was great. But he also had some interest in the space program, and combining that skill of being able to speak with broadening, as I said, into the space things that we do with Mr. Simmons and with you, Ms. Christensen, were wonderful because it gave him a different view. And in fact, he gave him an opportunity to speak in places and meet people that he otherwise wouldn't. And when I think about, he's been fortunate to really have wonderful educational experience beyond when he started here. And when I think about how that materialized, bright kid, worked hard, earned all that. But I got to give a lot of credit to these programs and to you guys actually in particular, because you did allow him to showcase his abilities. And I think when colleges were looking at him, I think when he was looking at other opportunities, he was different. And he was different because he got to do these things, and he got to do them at a young age. And, I'll even go so far as to, I don't want to be talking about him so much, but he's 18 years of age. He's in law school at the University of Pennsylvania. And how did that happen? Well, often parents are helping create that resume for children in the year just before they're going to apply to college. Well, Michael didn't have that. Michael's resume of things went back 5 years because of the programs he was doing with you. And if you did a YouTube search on him, things came up he was doing with you guys 5 years ago. There was no doctoring of the resume. There was no, let's make it look right. It was real. And I think that, when the admissions officers were looking, they said, okay, this kid is very, very different and very real. So not only did it give him the opportunity to do more things now, I think just those experiences showed in everything he did, whether it's an interview or whatever, and he became passionate about things he otherwise wouldn't. So the most credit in the world to what you guys are doing and how it's helped him, and it's helping our twins.
Yes, thank you. Michael was, for our listeners, a founding member of the very first CubeSat team that I wanted to see if middle school kids could do it, and they did. And I like what you said about Michael has real experiences on his resume, not activities that children do, but we really pride ourselves in having the kids be in the adult arena at doing the work. And
well, Michael was the first one who got the C-SPAN clip, I think,
well,
for
what
the
I
humans
was
to
gonna,
Mars.
yeah, what I was gonna share is the conference asked me, would we like to have a student speak? And it was Michael was the obvious choice. He did get a C-SPAN clip out of it, but what people don't know is NASA Administrator Bridenstine was there, and Michael got a much larger round of applause than the NASA administrator did. And he did this at the National Academies of Science. And it was a fantastic venue, fantastic, he crushed it. And of course, you may Google, our listeners may Google Michael Vescio's C-SPAN clip, where he makes a passionate plea about not only education and aerospace, but us going to the space.
And his TED Talk. That's another thing. I think that, we think just about what you said, the idea that in today's world, when people are looking at students for whether it's a high school, a college, or a job, to be able, they're going to search them. And he's going to come up with some serious experiences. And Deanie's now able to join those ranks as well.
Yes. I have a question. Now you have your 6th grade sons and you have your college freshmen. What did the 6th grade, Tyler and Elliot, what did they see that Mike did or didn't do, or how did they become interested? Was it just by watching their older brother? And speak a little about the next generation of Vescios in the pipeline.
I think watching their older brother, seeing you guys in action, because I'm going to come back again and talk about this program and complete the answer. One of the things that you are to be complimented on is that you have kids with those different skills and different things that they enjoy the most. And what I've noticed is that you find a way to integrate all of that. So if somebody is an artist, and that's really where their love is, they're actually drawing the logos that you use. Or if somebody is, as I said, Michael, an orator, more of an orator, you're helping develop that while they're developing other skills. And the fact that you're taking the time and allowing each child to explore the area that they're most passionate about keeps them engaged, and then keeps them then doing the other things, and then back to that broadening, because now they're involved. And I think that's tremendous, as opposed to being, kind of blinders and rigid in what's going on. So when you ask the question you just asked, our twins saw Michael with his oratory stuff. As you're aware, they're doing some of that too, not maybe at the same level of dedication that Michael is, but they're enjoying it, and they saw that example. They saw that what he got to do because of that. And I think the same thing started with the CubeSat. One of our children is very much in that engineering mode. He wants to understand how everything works. And so he's gravitated towards different parts of the CubeSat program and what you got to doing there. Our other one maybe has some of those same affinities, but maybe a little bit more broader into the speaking part, and he's gravitated there. So they saw their brother's exposures. It became an expectation in our household. That's what you do. They saw Michael being rewarded personally and publicly for his involvement, and they wanted to do the same thing. And it was sort of a natural. It was not, it was just, they expected they would be doing this. And again, great differentiator.
Yes. One experience I recently shared with your sons was they were on my space day team, and we participated in a one-day event where the aerospace industries in Florida advocate in Tallahassee to the legislators. And pre-COVID, we would go there live. This year it was a virtual option for us, but both of the twins were on my team with a young lady. And did they share anything about their experiences with that? And because I thought they did fantastic for their first real live advocacy, grassroots sort of effort. And what were your observations about their experience with that?
They enjoyed it very much. And I think it was empowering. And I know they want to do more of it. And I noticed something because, with this Zoom world we're in, cameras will be on, video will be on. And I was walking through the kitchen while you guys were having one of your meetings, and you asked for volunteers for this. And, and I think this goes across, I've noticed a number of times, you ask for volunteers for different activities, and everybody's hand goes up. They want to do it. It's not, let me sit back and I'm going to kind of duck this one. No, it's, yeah, can I do that? Yeah, can I do that? Oh, I like that one. And that was their reaction. And they enjoyed every second of it. And, to watch sixth graders who get distracted just on their own, unasked, once they committed, buckle down and sit there at the table and you make sure they had it right, not be lackadaisical, not ask for the parents to get involved and do it with them, but they're committed. You can see that passion, and and I mean that's back to that word I used earlier. That's the differentiator, is they become passionate. So yeah, they loved every second of it.
I know Ruhi had mentioned earlier that Deanie recently, her son is in 7th grade, and he went with us to Hawaii, and he is now on several papers that are being submitted. And recently he had been doing some backwards planning as far as time management was concerned, and like trying to take a project, break it apart, almost like in a Gantt chart along those lines. And he had come to her and asked a question like, how do you manage to do all this? And he had started to take a notice that, in her work, she's writing these papers. How does she handle some of the stressors that he was facing? Do you get any of that from your kids along the way, who come to you now as not just your dad, but a professional?
One of the things that I've gotten, it's so funny, is some of the homework they have to do for other classes, they don't really want to do. They can turn a 10-minute assignment into an hour at times, and I think all kids can do that because they just don't want to do it, but they're going to do it, but it becomes a big deal. And I don't want to sound trite. We're not rewarding them with, let's go get ice cream for doing it. We're rewarding them with, if you get that done, you can work on your space stuff, which is really kind of fascinating. And that's why I noticed the buckle down. It's, okay, I got to get this done, which they're capable of doing in the 10 minutes I just described. But I got to get it done in the 10 minutes so I can move on and write this piece for the advocacy I'm doing, which, is just sort of astounding. So, I mean, there's that. And then I think what they've been doing with their mom a lot in order to facilitate this, and it's a great skill they're learning, is they're making lists of tasks that they need to get done in order to get through the day and checking those off and taking their own ownership of the day, because how do I get to be at 4:00 in the afternoon to be done with what I need to be done with? And the only way I do that is by at 10 o'clock doing what I'm supposed to be, what I've decided I'm going to do at 10 o'clock. That, that's how we all work in the real world. And, so my wife has really been the one driving that, but they'll ask me questions too. But, it's okay, let me look at my schedule. How do I manage my day so I can manage all the pieces and also have some playtime? So, yeah, I think they come to me, they come to her.
Well, just for our sake of time, as we are to the end of that, I always end with kind of like a pieces of advice. And so it's always, I had mentioned to Ruhi earlier that, we have come to see your kids almost like you're an extension of our family. And Jackie, of course, has always been that for me, but we feel like our family grows larger every year. And yet at the same time, they're still around. Like we get to still watch Michael do these great things. What advice might you have for parents who might be listening, who might be on the kind of, the precipice of deciding, it sounds like a lot of work. I don't really know if I want my child to do work or if I want him or her to be happy and, peaceful. What is that balance about that you might give advice to parents as to whether or not they should check out the program? Let's start with Ruhi and then we'll finish with Gary.
Give it a try, right? If it doesn't work out, you can always pull back, right? But I think once the kids come into your programs, they're hooked. It is so much fun. It is so rewarding what they do and the experiences that they get, that it'll be hard to pull them out, I think. And so if parents get this opportunity, I think take it. If it works, it's wonderful for your children. It opens avenues to them which many other kids will not have. And if it doesn't work out, you can always pull out, right? So why not?
Right.
Gary, what about you?
I would I think that was very well said. I think I think that what happens is I would advise anyone to consider that if their child has any drive or any interest in broadening themselves, but you know, they're going to wind up being around kids and adults that are driven to accomplish things. And it's not going to be cool to be dumb or lazy, right? It's going to be cool to be involved, and that's what I've also seen in these meetings. That's what I think the work velocity picks up, and it doesn't phase them in the slightest because everybody's doing it, and they're all capable of it. And I guess maybe I've said this to a number of people. You know, it's not that difficult to look around ourselves and see all the challenges of the world and get concerned about what the world's going to look like in 20 years. But when you see kids that are doing these kinds of things, working together, then you're not concerned anymore because you say, oh, wow, look at all of these wonderful kids doing all these wonderful things. We're going to be okay. And it's again because of that mass think of you see them in groups talking and sharing and talking about things that are going to matter 10 years from now. And there's so much subliminal learning going on that, so I would say kids probably, if you're thinking about this, will enjoy it. They will probably increase their capability to get work done because they can do more probably. And I think they'll be thrilled and empowered. And that's supposed to make them happier people down the road.
Well, we are just thrilled to have you all as part of our family. We always talk about how the fact we get to work with great kids, but as I had mentioned so many times before, it really is because the parents allow them to take these tasks underway, but also they embrace the idea that it's going to be work. So we really appreciate all of you, both of your families particularly, and we look forward to continuing the work.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you guys do.